Hello. I'm just giving the tech a second. Okay, it looks like we are live and up. I've got my phone up in case people come live. If you leave any comments, questions, I should be able to see it there. If you are catching this recording, as always, please feel free to ask questions that way. You can either send me a DM. Sometimes DMs get lost. I've got my team helping me check those, so usually we'll get on top of those, but commenting on this actual video is usually the best way for me to make sure your questions are getting answered. So I am excited for today because SEO is one of the things I get asked about most, specifically generally, but then especially as it comes to booking therapy intensives. So I want to walk through some big picture things to think about, some tips, things that you can do and implement after listening to me ramble for about the next 20 minutes. So I know a lot of people feel very overwhelmed by SEO and AI, or some people are calling it AIO for AI optimization, just like SEO is search engine optimization. I want to talk about how they're both easier than you would think, and there's some very tiny actionable things you can do that are actually going to really help. So when it comes to search engine optimization, I'm going to start there because contrary to what people think, AI is not replacing SEO. It's almost like another strategy, but AI bots ultimately at the end of the day, they are still scanning search engine data. So AI depends on what is, optimized for search engines. So you shouldn't give up on SEO. You should learn also some things for AIO, but both is going to be your best shot for, getting found more, booking more ideal clients, booking more therapy intensives. So when it comes to SEO to start with, at its core, search engine optimization is all about how optimized is your website to be found by search engines. So there's a few essentially like pillars that go underneath that. Number one, obviously, you need to have a website. A one-page directory kind of thing does not count. Number one, you're not in charge of that. Like your Psychology Today, your Therapy Done, stuff like that. Yes, it counts as online visibility, but how much traction those platforms get ultimately depends on their marketing budget. And obviously, Psychology Today has like a huge marketing budget, but it's not. If you've ever searched for a therapist in your area, or even like maybe you've searched for yourself, even when you show up under Psychology Today in the Google results, sometimes you click it and it just says, here's all the couples therapists in your area. And it's like, well, that's not how I want people to find me, because that's literally a link that takes people to competition, so to speak, if we want to call it that. So you having your own website with multiple pages, that's a huge thing that I talk with a lot of therapists about, because some people, if you have simple practice, you might have that monarch page. That's, again, kind of a one pager, or there is also just like the simple practice landing page. There's not really ways to optimize that for SEO. Can it be found on Google? Sure, absolutely. But you are significantly limiting your ability to be found when like a one pager is the thing you're relying on. And here's why. What I said was, you want to make sure you have multiple pages on your website, because multiple pages give you multiple opportunities to rank for all the wonderful things that you do. When I'm talking about ranking, essentially that means, where are you in the Google search results? Are you page 1, page 2, page 7, or beyond? AIO is a little harder in terms of what does ranking mean. Like if you've searched for something, if you've searched for yourself in ChatGPT, for example, you'll see it says like, here are 3 therapists I recommend for you. I don't quite know yet if there's like if that's just random and that's just who they're picking, or if that is like, best to worst SEO, best is number 1, or exactly how they're pulling it. Again, I'll give some AI tips in a moment, but ranking on Google still matters, because again, AI is reading what is an SEO, search engine data and results. So having multiple pages, this means you have to have a homepage that describes, here's everything that I do in my practice, everything that I specialize in. You need to have an About Me page where that really talks about, it is about you and it's also not about you. About pages are, here is why I am the best therapist for you. And part of that is, talking about your trainings, your certifications, your credentials, your experience, maybe any lived experience or values that's important to your clients. But it's also an opportunity for you to show your clients you really get them, right? Because unfortunately, most people are probably not going to book you. You're not going to move forward with you because they know what your hobbies are on the weekend, right? Like that's not quite the personal disclosure that they're looking for. More and more therapy seekers these days do want to know, do you actually get it, right? For some people that's, well, do you have kids? Do you know what it's like to have kids? Because I don't know if I could work with a therapist who doesn't. Or, well, have you been divorced? Have you struggled with addiction? Like people want to know a little bit more of the intimate details of our life. And while that doesn't specifically matter for SEO, what it does matter is AIO, because AI is scanning more for both like authority, like how much are you the expert in what you do and how much is your website giving evidence to that? And it's also looking for pieces around like credibility and relatability, because while SEO depends on these what are called like short tail keywords, like trauma therapist in Seattle, right? It's 4 words. That's how someone could find me. But some people go to AI, whether they're voice noting, whether they're typing it in, they're treating it a little bit more conversationally. And so some people might be asking, who's a trauma therapist in Seattle who is queer, neurodivergent affirming, and accepts X insurance? Like people are getting more specific with their asks in AI, which means if that ultimately like that data isn't available on your website, AI can't scan for it. It can't read it. It can't put you in the list of people that it would recommend. So that's really important to think about on your About page is, yes, we want to have the keywords around what type of therapist you are, where you're located. Yes, we want to have the pieces around like authority, credibility, your training, your passion for this work. And we also want to have this piece around, as much as you are comfortable disclosing, have some of that. Again, you don't have to say like, personal trauma things. You can say like, with my own lived experience of trauma, right? Like that can kind of be enough. Or as someone who has faced trauma, like there are ways you can do tiny disclosures that is going to serve not just for building trust with clients that are going to reach out, but also for AI pulling you in some results where people are searching for very, very specific things. So your About page needs to do all of those different functions. And then when I say more pages, we have to think about your services, your specialties, offerings, whatever it is that you call them. So this is more than just, I see a lot of therapist websites because people ask me to, people want my feedback. And I think some of the biggest pitfalls I see are having a services page and like it's one page that says, here are the 12 different things that I offer. I offer individual and groups, and I work with teens and kids, and I do online, and I also do EMDR and trauma and all this stuff. Like that is never going to work from an SEO component. I don't exactly know how it would work with AIO either. Like it could maybe be helpful to have that all on one page, but again, AI depends on SEO. And so in this case, you have to think about, of the services you offer, let's face it, we are all trained as generalists. We can do anything. You can do any of these like 20 something different services, but that doesn't mean you have to list out every single one as a service, because as we know too, people are looking for specialists. And if you say I'm a specialist who specializes in 27 different topics, are you really a specialist, right? People want to know like, here's the thing I work on, here's the way I work on it, right? So if you work with attachment and complex trauma, Maybe that's, and I do that with individual trauma therapy and with couples therapy. Those are two services, so to speak. And then you can make more pages on your website around like what type of trauma therapy, what type of couples therapy. Because from this perspective, again, you've got one service page that says, here's everything I do. When you do that, like your keywords, you might even do the keyword research. You might know I have a really good shot at ranking for this. And it doesn't work because you've got all these different services competing with one another, right? So instead, having here's my one page on couples therapy, here's my one page on trauma therapy, here's my one page on anxiety therapy. Literally every single individual page gives you an opportunity to rank for that individual keyword. So that's really important. I know it's a pain in the butt because a lot of us are not writers. A lot of us were forced to write academic papers. And yes, it's helpful to like academically explain what some concepts or approaches are, but we also need to be human on our website. We need to explain things in a way that is approachable to the general public so that people actually know what we're talking about and trust that, right, we are the one to help them. So I know it's a pain in the butt to think about adding more pages on your website, but it is truly going to help from an SEO component. Now, where do therapy intensives come into play with this? The term therapy intensive, it doesn't quite perform from an SEO keyword component yet, because therapy intensives are a newer, like not even all therapists have heard of it. There's always people discovering what this is, what it means, what it looks like. So compared to an anxiety therapist near me, a therapist specializing in divorce or whatever it is, like people know that because those are kind of lay people terms. Some people are looking for very specific things like an EMDR therapist, a Gottman therapist, whatever that is, but most people are just looking for therapy. The two exceptions I've seen to that are EMDR intensives do tend to perform okay in terms of a keyword. There are more people looking for that these days. Granted, is that other therapists looking for it, trying to learn about it, or is that actually the lay public searching for that? That data, all these places that collect information on keywords, like I don't know that we could determine that, but EMDR intensives is performing as a keyword. And then usually some variation of couples intensives. Now this goes back to, I just did a live last week, so watch that recording if you did not already. That's where a lot of people say, oh, okay, so the only way I can be successful with intensives is if I do EMDR couples therapy. And that's not true. It's just that's what people have heard of more. And right now, those are keywords that kind of work. They're not fantastic. There's not hundreds or thousands of people searching for it per month, but they're okay if you do that and if you want to use those as keywords. But otherwise, what people are ultimately looking for is help, right? So whether you have an OCD specialty, whether you have, I'm trying to think of like things I don't normally list off just to show you like there's more variety here. Like whether you work with like parents and how to parent their kids better, whether you do family therapy, like whatever you do, people are searching for help, right? They're probably not specifically searching for a therapy intensive, but that doesn't mean you don't have a page about your therapy intensives. And that doesn't mean you don't talk about your therapy intensives all over your website. Like that is ultimately the job of these individual service pages that you have, these blogs that you do. That's going to get the traction. It's going to get the traffic to your website. And then it's your website's job to point them in the right direction of, okay, if this is what you're struggling with, if this is what you're needing help with, here's how I can help. And here's this offering you may not have heard before, which is this intensive, right? And most people haven't heard of that term. So be playful with the language. You can call it an extended session, a breakthrough session, a deep dive session, whatever. You don't have to name it intensive. Some people might be put off by that term, quite frankly, but people are searching for help. When they can find you based on the help they're looking for, which might be therapy for panic attacks, therapy for separation, if they can find you for that thing and then they land on your page, they read about your specialties, they read about, what your experience is like with this, how you've helped clients with this, and then they see, and here's this way that we can work with this even faster and deeper and potentially better. That's what helps people convert into therapy intensives, right? Unless somehow I've had less than 10, probably, honestly, people in the past 3 years who have specifically told me, like, my therapist told me I should look for an intensive. So I'm doing like an adjunct intensive in that way. Or I was just looking for EMDR or brain spotting, and I saw these intensives you're doing, and I want to learn more about them. But again, they're learning about the intensives because they landed on my website. They're not Googling, how do I find intensive therapy or new me? Because if they're searching for that, they're probably looking for an intensive outpatient program. And I imagine that's not what a lot of you are doing in your private practices. So don't worry about like the keyword component for intensives. Worry about and focus on what is the help they're looking for. And if they land on your page, how are you going to lay out that story of why the intensive is the right fit for them, and like click here to learn more, click to see if this would be a good fit, whatever it is that just puts them over there. I personally, on my website, I have a banner at the top that's always talking about when I have openings for intensives. And then I have a pop-up window that also says, like, by the way, if you're looking to skip the wait list, do some work faster, here's your options. So that is really what we have to focus on from the SEO component, is having multiple service pages. The blogs that I've talked about is really a matter of like, how do we answer those frequently asked questions that people are going to Google for? And that's not always going to say, all of your clients are going to come from your blogs, because some people are just looking for insight, right? Why do I do this thing? What are some tips for this thing? They may not be looking for a therapist, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't put that content out there, because it helps with your ranking. And again, it helps with this AIO, because you are effectively, with every service page you add, every blog post you add, you're effectively showing Google and AI bots, here's why I'm an expert in all of these areas. And those two platforms love that. They love the more quality, helpful information you can put out there. And one of the easiest things, quite frankly, to do for AIO is on every page. Obviously, we all have our homepage with a little intro about us. We have our about page, but then usually we don't talk about ourselves in the rest of all the pages. It's just, here's this therapy, here's this niche, book now, schedule a consult, fill out this contact form, email me, whatever. On every single page, you should have another tiny intro about yourself, because now you are combining someone searched for this keyword, they found you, and the AI component of authority, because you get to say, this is what brain spotting therapy is. Here's Amanda. Here's how she's a brain spotting therapist. She's certified. She's a consultant. She's been doing this for X amount of years. That's where you kind of get to brag on yourself, which as therapists, for most of us, doesn't feel natural. Sometimes it feels weird. It feels like marketing ourselves. But those are the things that are going to help more people actually reach out, right? Instead of just seeing a page on X type of therapy, they're going to see this information. They're going to read what you're writing about how you get it. They're going to see explicit information next to your headshot. So have a headshot and have like 3 to 5 sentences next to it about why you are the expert in this. And that's going to help both the SEO component, the AIO component, and it is going to help more people reach out to you, whether that is for weekly, bi-weekly therapy or for intensives. But I will say, I know there's a ton of people, obviously, who are worried about the current state of the economy. Who knows how long we're going to be in this current state. But there are so many therapists that I have worked with that are still telling me, I just booked an intensive. I just booked an intensive. Someone else just reached out about an intensive. My current client wanted to do an intensive. So there are still people out there who want this work. It is just your job to be visible, right? Be easily findable, and to educate people on what their options are when it comes to getting the support that they want for their mental health. So That's it from some simple SEO tweaks you can make. So if you don't already have multiple pages on your website, that is a project for yourself. Take your time with it. There's no reason you have to publish 10 pages in a week or something like that. Most people take like a week or two to work on one individual additional service page because they should be about 1,000 words. Yes, AI can kind of help you with that, but obviously you want your tone of voice, your personality, your values to shine through in all those pages. But think about any other pages you can add, things that you're not showing off about yourself. Talk more about why you are the expert from that AI component, and really just think about how does my website as a whole market the thing that I want to market. Like if I want to book more intensives, how easy is it for someone to land on my site and learn that I have intensives versus is it tucked away at the bottom of a drop down in the navigation bar under like 12 different options? I'm probably not going to find it that way. But if there's a pop-up and a banner and a tab specifically for intensives, and I keep talking everywhere on all my pages about why an intensive is a good fit for them, that's what helps, right? So if you have any questions about the SEO component, the AIO component, if you are here live, please let me know in the chat before I sign off. I haven't seen anything come through yet. Let me, ooh, I tried to open it on my phone and now I heard myself talking. Aha, I did see some questions come in. Message, disregard. Do you think it's still helpful to use the word intensive since it's gaining recognition? It can be for the things that it's like performing fairly well for right now. So again, like EMDR intensives, couples intensives, but don't worry too much. I've seen some people who are like, I want to do a CBT intensive. I want to do a childhood trauma processing intensive. I want to market a whatever it is. You can use the word, just again, like know that it's probably not that individual intensive page is probably not going to, rank page or position 7 or something unless someone is very specifically typing that into Google or AI. So you can use it. It's not that it's a bad thing. Just don't rely on it for that's what's going to get me clients compared to a page on trauma therapy, a page on CPTSD, a page on whatever it is. Those are going to be your best bets. And then a little intro for credibility for the blog. Yeah, it's for blogs and web pages. So on every blog, I have a about the author section. Honestly, we wrote one, me and my virtual assistants. And then when we go do a blog, what we essentially do is duplicate the blog instead of add a new blog, just so that that little intro is always in there. So then we tweak the blog content to match whatever the content for the blog is. And then, yes, so have it on the blog. That one is a little pros and cons to it. It's okay for that one to be templated and kind of vague. Usually we'll change out a little bit. Like if it's a blog about something related to trauma, it'll just say like Amanda Baduris is a trauma therapist in. Sometimes if it's about like how trauma impacts relationships, it'll say Amanda Baduris is a trauma and couples therapist in, or like anything like that. Or you could just have it be one templated one that you do. If you all are in the SEO membership, there is a prompt. There's like a fill in the blank template I have for what you can put into your blogs and your web pages, because yes, it should go literally everywhere. And as much as I hate that because it feels weird, like, oh, there's my face again, there's my little bio again, it is helping with how my pages are ranking and how people are reaching out. So sometimes things don't feel great, but they work. And that's ultimately what we're looking for when it comes to SEO and AIO, is we want things that work and are pretty low lift, low effort. Like, yes, a lot of you all, if you're learning about this now, maybe it's a little newer, so you're doing some more work, but ultimately you're doing the work now, and then you shouldn't have to change much of it long term. There's not much I've changed on my website from an SEO component outside of like one of my specialties, because I was like, oh, people are searching with the word, I do the safe and sound protocol, and I was using the ampersand, but apparently people are typing out and. So literally I changed it to safe spelled out and sound protocol, and already noticed like how quickly my page rose in rankings. So tiny changes is all that it makes, and then tracking, making sure things are working. So I don't see any other questions for those who are here live. So again, if you're catching the recording, please put comments in the comment section and I will get back to you as soon as I see those. Thank you much for being here live. If you were here live, thanks for watching the recording. I hope you all have a good rest of your Wednesday. Happy Halloween if that's a thing that you celebrate. It's a beautiful sunny day in Seattle, which I will take. I hope you all are doing well, and I will talk with you all at the next live I do. I don't have one scheduled for next week, so it might be in a couple of weeks. But thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.